Lorie, for all intents and purpose, it looks like you might have had something to do with Larry's death. I wish I could talk to you, 'cause I don't know what you're talking about. This is Lorie Eisenberg. 1 month ago, Lorie lured her husband to a desolate part of this Idaho lake, surrounded with
Up by the fireboat. About how far from the shore do you think? Maybe. That's okay. She said he might have had a medical episode that caused him to fall into water. He said he didn't feel good, and he was doing things weird. And then,
Quick. For me, I have to take it all the time because I have allergies. And I would say if I take two a half an hour, I'm pretty much loopy. You know, I don't know what it is with you. So it would act fairly quickly, and it would be, for all intents and purposes, based on the research that I have and the doctors that I've spoke to, would make them borderline unfunctional. So those are kind of the facts that are there. Those are the things that you need to think about. Lorie, for all intents and purposes, it looks like you might have had something to do with
Larry's death. And I want to know anything that you can provide that would help explain these things away. Because the facts that will go to the prosecutor are the very facts that I presented to you. And those facts are supported by, well, they pretty much are a timeline. Your phone, Facebook stuff, emails that might have been there, are there other people's text messages that were there, and timelines. And I guess the big thing for me, because I look at you and I look at his relationship, your relationship, and everybody that I talk to talks, like how much of a picture-perfect relationship you guys have, is I ask everybody, do you think that Lorie would be capable of harming Larry? Very few people.
In fact, on one hand, thought that you would be capable of doing it. And those people, I would say half of them might have to write them off, 'cause they're letting some other stuff talk. The one that was the most interesting to me, who said, I don't think she could, and that if she did, I would have to almost keep in my mind, unless I knew for sure, that it was like a mercy killing. Like if it indeed happened, she did not want Larry to know what had happened. And for the disagreement, or not the disagreement, but the disappointment that he would have faced, and whatever reaction was going to be there. Larry and Lorie reportedly did have a happy relationship for the most part, but in the months leading up to Larry's death, the two had begun arguing about finances. Lorie had a habit of handing over any money the couple had to her kids from a previous marriage, even driving herself and Larry into debt to do so. And that's without the embezzlement even being factored in. It seems that Larry had no idea Lorie had embezzled $500,000 from her business. To this day, law enforcement's working theory is that Lorie killed Larry in an attempt to stop him from finding out, and to potentially soften the charges she was facing by garnering sympathy from the judge or jury over the death of her husband. These are the things that we found. I have an action, and I wish He went up to do the motor, and the motor wasn't broken. It was the other motor. Okay. And then I said, why are you doing that? He turned to look at me, and his face just looked okay. One thing I didn't bring with me, and that is the actual timeline of everything that's there. If you want to meet with your attorney, that would be something that I would bring and show. Because in lieu of you speaking to us, in lieu of us finding out these answers, we have to submit this as is. We have to submit it with what is there. And what is there, Lorie, points to a concern of Larry finding out and, in a lack of a better word, taking care of that problem before he did.
I mean, I don't want to be tedious, because I don't know I kind of know what your relationship is like, because, man, everybody was like, it's like perfect almost, and it should be something for you to be thankful for. You guys were you made people
sick the way the last 6 months or so. People said, yeah, there was just a difference in the last 6 months. People's noticed different, which everybody's relationships go through problems. So, Lorie, that is kind of it in a launch. I'm not going to ask you any further questions because you're related that you want to talk to your lawyer. I will allow if you have a question regarding the timeline or anything that I answer, you might repeat it. I'll be happy to do that for you. Do you have any questions? Regarding the time?
not any questions that outside of that. How would you like to talk to us with your attorney present? Unfortunately we have to record you for yes.
Okay. Ultimately, Lorie was sentenced to 5 years in prison for her embezzlement scheme, during which she was charged with Larry's murder. In 2021, she pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, stating that the drink had been intended for herself to take her own life. The court
Didn't buy it, and in May of 2021, she was sentenced to life in prison with a possibility of parole after 30 years. Our thoughts are with Larry's children, friends, and family, who were all deeply affected by the loss of a kind man taken far, far too soon. Thank you for watching today's video.
Whether you're new here or have been with us for a while, check out one of the craziest cases I've ever covered right here, or one of my newest uploads right here.
It looked awful. And then he just started to fall. And I tried to get the door open and get to him, and I couldn't grab him, and I fell. Okay. And then I didn't. Well, like I said, we have the best people out there looking for them, okay?
Very good divers, very good rescue team that's out looking for them, okay? But if you can think of anything, if while they're checking you out, if you can think of any landmarks or anything that you may have seen, and I know it's kind of hard to think about right now, but if you think of anything, please let us know, okay? Lorie was visibly distressed at the scene, and though from the outside it looked like Larry had simply had a medical issue and fallen overboard, there were still some red flags popping up in the supposedly grieving widow story. Namely, the fact that it had taken her several hours to call the police, which she blamed on not being able to locate his cell phone on the boat. And according to her, she was trying to get to shore. But because of the broken engine, it was a struggle to get anywhere. Outside, the lead investigator pulls a brand new trainee aside to give him some words of wisdom, that someone can appear to be a victim, but may in fact be the perpetrator, or vice versa. He's got quite a bloody nose. She says that she fell down trying to catch him and busted her nose on the boat.
She's pretty freaked out. So in this case, in cases like this, you don't lose suspicion if you're picking up on weird. Keep that in mind. But when you're talking to them, hey, we're doing our best. We got good people out there working.
Lorie was brought to the hospital so medical professionals could take a look at her bloody nose. Detectives met her there, following her assessment in order to ask her a few questions which only brought up more questions. So let's fast forward up to the point where he starts having his medical issue.
Kind of explain that part to me. Okay, I don't know where we were. I'm going to assume he had said something about, I'm sort of waking up, and he said something about the resort. I think he said there's the resort. We were going to go to it for breakfast, because he said something about the resort. So,
forests and drowned Larry more than 200 feet to the bottom of it. Lorie thought that with her acting, no one would notice what she had done. I was trying to grab you. Okay, we got him, and then he just started to fall. But she has no idea that at this very moment, she isn't.
I was sort of like, okay, time to wake up. We're going to go to breakfast. And, chatted a few minutes. Again, I wasn't tracking time. And then he stood up and he sort of, matter of fact, I think it broke the key. He sort of leaned on the key.
Sort of odd the way he did it. And I just sort of looked at him because he just sort of got it fast, we weren't fishing. It wasn't like, oh wow, watch the fishing bowl or anything like that. And he said,
"You remember him leaning on that key?" "What?" That's okay. I don't know that I saw him lean on the key, but I think I saw him do something that made me think that.
Okay, and then later when I tried to start the motor, the key was bent. It is bent. Yeah, and it's the tote thing. Oh, no, that happened earlier because So that was a little bit earlier that he had done that, and then it wouldn't start again, and so they took it out, and he saw the key was bent, and there's 2 little bolts or something that had fallen off. This is a detail that investigators immediately flagged as odd.
the ignition key for the boat had been bent. Not just a little bit, but completely. Something that would have taken a great deal of force to do. Initially, they suspected that it had been snapped in some kind of struggle or fall against the key while it was in the ignition. And then he said something about the motor wasn't working right.
He stood up, and the motor was in the back, and he opened up the thing to go out on the... You saw the boat coming out on the front. And closed it, and he went over to the electric motor. I said, "Honey, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, the motor's not working right." I said, "We're not using that motor." And I'm sitting in the chair here. I'm looking at him. It's right there. He did a... Yeah. And he was work. The motor. Like this. And then he just sort of looked back at me like that. And he'd been sort of bent down. With the motor. And then he stood up. He stood up quick. And he sort of looked at me. And his face just looked... I can't describe. I just looked blank.
And then he just turned. So now he's that way. And I think he was trying to turn it's so hard. I think he was reaching for the window right there. And so then I jumped up out of my seat, but he had closed the...
Victim. She is a murder suspect because Clue Larry is autopsy, and there is a large quantity of men. After Clue will prove that detectives have been sitting in front of a killer from the very beginning, so the end result is, quite frankly, dead.
Window thing there. And he's falling, and so I jumped up out of my seat and I had to push that, and I think that's when I fell, because I was grabbing for him as he was falling over, and then he just fell in, and he didn't come up. I mean, I saw his sweatshirt, and the boat was still going until I ran, because I couldn't see him, and I thought, well, the boat's going, and that's not good. So then I was trying to run back in, and the zipper things are there. I tripped and fell there, and then got those up and looked, and I couldn't see them there either. Let's see where I went. I turned to my left, I looked on that side, and when you said the motor was still going, the gas motor is what you're talking about. Right, so that one was still running when he fell in, yeah. Okay, so that was idling or something like that, right? That's what he was saying? So you weren't up on plane or anything, but that was still running. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we weren't going very fast. Okay, so then I looked and he wasn't there. And then I ran over and I looked on the other side and of course was screaming, and then went back up to the front and he never came back up. But I thought he'd come back up. I was going to throw him a life jacket or something, and he just wasn't there. And so then I just kept, sort of running back and forth and calling his name, and I couldn't see him. And then I just started driving the boat thinking, maybe I'd see him. People who are grieving and experiencing trauma do some strange things, but guilty people do things that are, shall we say, facepalm worthy. According to Lorie, she drove around for nearly an hour and a half just looking for Larry before she decided to look for help. Then she drove around the lake using their backup engine, trying to find civilization so she could have someone call the police. Until finally, several hours after the supposed love of her life fell in the lake, she found his cell phone in the boat and then called police. And while that story alone is unbelievable, she couldn't even stick to it. Throughout her various interrogations, Lorie tells police 3 separate locations where she found the cell phone. At this point, police are obviously suspicious of her, but in the midst of the search for Larry, she's arrested for a completely different crime, one that makes her story even more suspicious. My kids had a lot of medical expenses and things, and I just wanted to help him, and I thought I could pay it back. I didn't take any of it. I mean, I know I'm taking it when I take it and help my kids. Are we talking a lot of money? I don't. You kill Larry? Or didn't you kill Larry? On the cold winter morning of February 13th, 2018, dispatch in rural Idaho received a panicked 911 call from 64-year-old Lorie Eisenberg. 911, what's the address for emergency? I need help. I'm on the lake. Know how much money? Just a guess. $200,000 over a couple years? Okay. I told them I can pay it back. Lorie worked as the executive director for a nonprofit organization called the North Idaho Housing Coalition, a company that she embezzled $500,000 from in just a 4-year period. Ultimately, she was arrested and booked for 1 count of grand theft and 40 counts of forgery. Yes, 40. And while that crime was hefty enough, police still had murder on their mind. But charging for murder is incredibly challenging when you don't have physical evidence to back it up. Due to the frigid temperatures of the lake Larry was believed to have drowned in, police expected that they may never find his body. Cold lakes rarely give up their dead. Because the freezing temperatures prohibit decay, which results in bodies often resting on the lake bottom for years. But in this case, police caught a break, and Larry's family were given answers, no matter how tragic. I believe that there's a dead body on our shoreline right outside of our house. On March 1st, police responded to the lake and quickly identified the body of 68-year-old father Lorie Eisenberg. He was sent for an autopsy, and there police discovered the final nail in the coffin for Lorie. While awaiting trial for her forgery and embezzlement charges, Lorie was brought in for questioning.
Hi, Lorie. Hello, Lorie. How you doing? I don't know if you remember me, Ken. I came to visit you when I think so. Do you remember at your house? Good. How are things going? Actually,
Yeah, we were quite shocked to hear that they still had, they'd be shipping you down to Dublin. Yes, it's been weird that some people have gone and I'm still here. Yeah, that was okay for us because I didn't like hay. So, we talked a long time.
Ago. Long time ago. And we're towards the end of everything that has to do with our stuff. And we thought that we would stop over, either a 1-part or 2-part thing, and just chat with you and see if you'd be interested in hearing what we have to say, and you give your point on things.
If you're agreeable to that, we can talk, but we leave it up to you. Go ahead. Okay, so because you're in custody, even though we're not going to per se be talking about the thing that you were convicted, by the way, everything's file on that now. Yes. So the end result is 5 years. 5 years of which do they have good time in the federal system? Yes. So you'll be, what's the address? I'm on the lake, but I don't know where. My husband he had a smoke, and he fell over. I've been looking for him for hours. Quickly, search and rescue and law enforcement were dispatched to Lake Coeur d'Alene. Search and rescue got to work. 3 to 4 if you're beheaded. I can't see. Yeah. Okay. Well, you're in custody still, and we're going to be talking to you about a case where there's potential charges. So did you, or I think the last time you're probably interviewed was by
Special Agent Gunnison. Did he read your Miranda then? Did he explain to you your rights and everything? I'm sure. Okay. Well, so basically, there's 5 basic points. Laura's read her Miranda rights, and the detective wastes no time getting right down to business.
I'm just trying to go over the version that I have and ensure that it's correct. So, Mr. Romance, Larry, and you guys have been not feeling well for a while, and you came up with a romantic deal that, hey, why don't we go out on the lake and see the sunrise, and then cruise up to Coral Lane Lake Resort, or Coeur Lane Resort. Okay, you guys headed to the lake early that morning. Got on a boat, went out, you kind of fell asleep, and then you woke up and Larry was acting different, so to speak, saying something's wrong with the motor. And then it kind of progressed from there. Went up front, tried to work with the trolling motor, and then looped back with I think it was a flush and a couple other descriptions, and then as though he had a stroke in the water.
That fairly accurate as far as the course of events. I don't think I thought I didn't know what was wrong. Right, I understand. But so something happened and then he basically just tipped over. Pretty much. And then obviously you kept going around for a while trying to find him. And then ultimately you were able to locate the phone. One of the areas that was a little confusing is the different areas of which you had mentioned that you found the phone.
Deputy Detective Jackson was a diver. He was a diverse you. You found it when you're looking for or when you're getting a blanket to get warm. So, Detective Jackson,
I believe it was you, found it within the blanket with medical personnel. You mentioned you found it in the coat
pocket, and then I believe with me you found it on the dash. Which is the accurate one? What? Everything I told you is accurate? Okay. So with me, so it's on a dash. Okay. So,
Going through everything and looking at everything, there are a lot of questions that come up. And obviously, I'm sure that you've been able to see the affidavit that was published over at Spokane. And I don't know how much it was released by that paper. It'd be the one.
patrolling the lake in an effort to find Larry. Meanwhile, law enforcement questioned Lorie about the events leading up to Larry allegedly falling off the boat. Hey, Lorie, my name is Deputy Baum, and I'm with the sheriff's office. I'm just going to try to ask you some questions.
That was in the paper. Okay, so we have a lot of questions that we need to kind of dial in at the end of it so that when we present it to the prosecutor, they have an accurate reflection of exactly what it is that's there. So we know that obviously there were some things that went on with and then we know that there's Larry's portion. And as I talked about before, you're always going to have those people who link the two and say that, that you killed Larry. So the end result is, quite frankly, did you kill Larry or didn't you kill Larry?
And that's what we got to dial the facts in to support one way or another. Because in the end, our opinions don't matter at all. It's only what the facts reflect. Does that make sense? A lot of people think based on TV that we're the ones that put you in prison, and that's not reality. Reality is all we do is collect facts. Prisoners see Detective Bryant, or Dennis, do affairs on there. So with that being said, is there anything that you can think about that in our initial conversation that after all this time would be different?
Yeah. Okay, so then we come to the part where Larry is autopsied, and they do toxicology on it, and there is a large quantity of diphenhydramine, aka Benadryl, aka what really would be a cough. It's pretty much a banal situation, and we're trying to figure out what happened. Any of this. Okay. The toxicology report came back with evidence that he had 7,100 nanograms per liter of diphenhydramine in his blood. A therapeutic level is anywhere between 100 to 1,000 nanograms per liter. The dose that he had been given was lethal. On the boat in Lorie's purse, police had actually discovered an empty bottle of allergy medicine containing diphenhydramine and an empty bottle of juice, which they believe was used to hide the taste of the crushed-up pills. Evidence from the autopsy also proved that when Larry was put into the water, he was already dead. In other words, he had overdosed on the boat and then been rolled into the water by the only person with him, his wife of 15 years. So the morning that you guys went down to the boat ramp, can you kind of recall? Just kind of walk me through your trip down there. My understanding is that you left around 5-ish. I think I'm not going to change anything for my stupid. Okay. But Lorie, there's a lot of things within your phone records. There's a lot of things within your Facebook records that will lead one to believe that it's something other than what it is. And Lorie, can I ask you a question? Going on your computer searches? So we can kind of figure out where to go from here. Okay, can you tell me, how did you get the bloody nose? He fell down. So she fell against the door. Okay, all right. Well, we're going to... When you went to Florida, you've got searches about depth charts, whether you can vote, like baby view at night. There's a lot of stuff there. Can you explain that? Yeah. I think if you're going to start asking me questions like that, I should have read. Good. And that's what we're going to be doing, because that's what we need to conclude the case. So who? Do you have a retained attorney right now? Okay. So in essence, unless you can think that that's basically what we need to know the end result. And the idea is to give you a chance to explain some of these facts before we present to the prosecutor. People say things, I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't know of things that have come up. I don't know where people are coming up with these things. I don't know what you're talking about. Well, that's why we're here talking to you. Yeah, because we're trying to find out, and because honestly, I've lost a lot of trust. Some of the things that they've said I know are not true. I wish I could just talk to you.
Some of the things you said that they've been in the paper, this is something anonymous source said or something, and I wish I could talk to you because I don't know what you're talking about. So let us not ask questions. Let us explain so that you're aware, so that you'll be fully apprised. You at least have something to be able to do. So we know that obviously prior to the 24th that there was activities going on in the coalition. We know that on the 24th in the morning that you were advised that you would be suspended. Based on that stuff, and you thoroughly offered to assist them and in what they needed to do. You know that on the 25th, after seeing other things, that the board decided that it was best to let you go and that you were advised on the 26th by paper. We know on the 26th that you were contacted.
Which the phone call is relatively short, and you call them right back. And the end result of that was whatever you do, you'll tell Larry or something to that effect, because I want to be that person to tell. That was on 26th. We also know on the 26th that you made, or 25th or 26th, that you made airline
Reservations to go to Florida. Based on what the president is, you couldn't meet with them because these reservations and so forth had been made for a long time, and it was something that was a planned trip. However, in your emails to your...
Got him. We got the best people out there looking for him right now, okay? So we're gonna do what we can. But can you tell me about how far when he fell in? Closer to this side, I think. Okay, closer to this side. Okay. Did you see any houses or big trees or...
Daughter, you put the spoiler alert to let them know that you're going to Florida, and then I already talking to Mike said, yeah, we already changed our plans. We're not going south. We're going to be going to Florida. That's on the 26th. You guys left on the 28th, but on the 27th, you're
researching in your, on your phone regarding... See, this is just the 7. You're researching drowning.
articles on the Florida Gold, Cape Canal drownings, boating accidents, and so forth. And then on the 28th, you had left to go south. During your time frame in the first couple days that we're down there, you literally have hundreds of searches that relate to, maybe not hundreds, but
a lot that relate to boat rentals, that relate to dumpster waters, that relate to fishing, relate to various aspects of the water thereof, and distances to deep water and so forth. When you guys come back, all of which during the first phase that you go down there, we not noted that before. That time there was very few searches regarding anything. When you came back on the 8th or 9th, you have commented that Larry had a flu bug to Jessica and to a couple other people that you guys weren't feeling good. However, his conversation with the doctor reflected, yeah, on the trip, I feel like I might have had some type of bug, but that nothing else relates any illness whatsoever. And talking to the doctor.
and talking to your neighbors, I don't know, because a neighbor's a neighbor. You never know if they're friends or foes. She again said, yeah, I clearly would have had anything wrong with it. He would have come up and say, hey, what do I do? Would have said that. The 11th going deep. TrueCrime. Forward just a little bit. The 11th, there was some checking into, why are people dying of flu? We started checking depth waters and Lake Tudor. You can be on the lake at night.
Distance to Whiskey Rock, which is the deepest part of the lake there. And then that's followed up by you actually being, or your phone being, in Paray, or more specifically in Bayview, on the morning of the 12th, between 2 and about 2 o'clock, and being there for a significant amount of time. Now, we're going to break something down a little bit. Lorie was fired from her job for embezzlement on January 26, 2018. The very next day, she and Larry went to Florida on a planned vacation, where Lorie made several incriminating searches relating to drowning deaths off landmarks in the water. Okay, it's okay. I didn't see. About how far do you think it was away? From what? From where you got picked? The coast, where they went fishing. During the trip, Larry reportedly fell incredibly ill. Detectives believe that this was the result of a failed attempt at murder, likely due to Lorie administering too little medication. When the couple returned to Idaho, however, she decided to change tactics.
Surprisingly, the boat ride was Larry's idea. He wanted to take Lorie out on a sunrise cruise to show that he appreciated her. In response, she killed him. And then on the morning of the 13th, we know that you guys were down on the boat launch. We know that you left your
House, and you at least your phone hits the tower right at Micah about 6-ish, 6:30-ish. So we know that you were there then. And then we know that you were at the boat ramp at 6:40 because that's when the picture was taken and the text message sent out based on a very short clip.
Of which has been, we're talking a second, maybe second and a half of a male voice. We assume that Larry was alive at that point. However, we know that between 6:40 and 10, if he was alive at that point, that something happened and that he fell in water. The autopsy did not divulge anything that was stroke-related. And I would, as far as a factual point, I would refer that to the actual doctor. I'm saying what they mentioned or heart-related. But the contributing factors were a lethal dose of basically hydrazine, which it could be
Benadryl crushed up. It could be there's several products that have it and everything. So here's what we do know. We know that Larry was alive based on what we know on the 13th at 6:40. We know that Larry was deceased. I think we can relatively assume that by
10:30, I think, is about 10:23 actually, is when you make the call. We know that between those times that there were lethal levels of diphenhydramine in the system. Have you ever taken Venetrol before? Yes. Okay. How many do you take when you take?
Two. Does it make you kind of? It does mean to not see that. So this in a rough scenario based on Dr. King, who's the coroner, and it's only an estimate. He said that would have to be a fairly healthy
amount of diphenhydramine to make him that way. In essence, whatever got to insist him, if he was alive at 6:40 and he fell overboard, let's say that it was anywhere between a half an hour to an hour before you would call. So let's even do that. 6:40, 9 o'clock. Yeah, 6 to 85, someplace in that time frame. Larry would have had to consume a large amount of dihydrogen. And as you know from taking it yourself, dihydrogen, depending on who you are and how much you take, acts pretty